Welcome back, Sebastian here. So finishing up my series, looking at each of the 10 teams in Formula One after roughly the midpoint of the 2024 F1 season. Today we're going to be looking at Red Bull. Now Red Bull has had quite the tumultuous year. They've been in the news a lot, often for the wrong reasons. And again, they've been in the news as well because of massive rumors and all that connected to the driver market. First, as we always do, let's take a look at their drivers and look at the head-to-head stats against them. Again, these stats are not going to be pretty if you're a fan of Sergio Perez. So qualifying head-to-head is 14-0. Median qualifying delta 0.445 seconds, about half a second on for the median number. So not even average. This is just for the median number. Average starting position 2.47 for Verstappen. Again, not a bad number. Again, that's I believe the best on the grid. For Perez, 8.18, so about 7.5 positions behind his teammate Verstappen on average after qualifying. Average finishing position 2.13 for Verstappen. For Perez, 5.73. So for Verstappen, he's able to improve on his starting position a bit, and for Perez, he is improving as well. But again, it's about 2.5 positions. But when you're starting so far back, 2.5 positions is not really good enough. For points, it's about what you would expect given all those numbers, and given how big the gaps are. For Verstappen, 277 points, first in the Drivers' Championship, and for Perez, 131 points, 7th in the Drivers' Championship. And again, for Perez, he would be 8th in the Drivers' Championship if Russell hadn't been disqualified from the Belgian Grand Prix. In terms of how I feel the drivers have done this year, looking at the average from my power rankings, Verstappen is a 3.4, which ranks first, and for Perez 12.9, which ranks 14th. Again, for Perez, you might look at that and say that's a little bit high, but again, if you were to make a power rankings where specifically compared to expectations of what's required for being in a constructors championship winning team, you could arguably score Perez at the bottom of the 2024 grid. But again, I do think based on the whole grid, and again based on how I score things, I don't think he's been great. I do think he's been below average, and again, it's something that he really needs to improve in the second half of 2024. Looking at my expected points model, again, it's about what you would expect. Verstappen, very, very good driver in the positive, 8.55 or 103%. And for Perez, negative 45.27 or 72%. So again, this is a model that is supposed to take qualifying out of the equation. Just does things based on how strong the car is and based on starting position. And again, even with that, Perez is still in the negative. And again, I've looked at other drivers, not necessarily in F1, but in Formula E. There's drivers like, I'll just give Da Costa as an example, struggles in qualifying, but very, very good in the races. And for this kind of stat, he is still in the positive. And for Perez, again, another driver who struggles in qualifying, but again, struggling as well in the races because that number is a pretty big negative. And for Verstappen as well, this points above expected. Last year, it was the highest I'd ever seen out of all the years I've calculated, and which I think goes back to about 2014, I believe, at this point, is how far I've gone back. But again, not as good. And again, there's a variety of reasons for that. Podiums, 9 for Verstappen, 4 for Perez, but very worryingly for Perez, all 4 of those podiums came in the first 5 races, so he has not gotten a podium since Shanghai. In terms of wins, 7 for Verstappen, again, most on the grid. Everyone else has 1 except for, I should rephrase that. All of the other winners have 1 except for Hamilton, who has 2. And then again, you have Perez, 0, only driver in the top 4 teams without a win. So again, I think Verstappen's had a pretty good year. Again, not as flawless, not as perfect as 2023 was, but again, when the car is not as good as 2023, that's understandable. And he definitely has had some scruffy moments where he's gotten a bit hot-headed, but for the most part, he's been very, very good. For Perez, again, it's been a struggle, a massive struggle, basically ever since we got to Europe. And it's something that I looked at in an analysis I did about a month ago, where again, it just, for whatever reason, year on year, the last 4 years, every year that he's been at Red Bull, just for when you get to Europe, it's actually a trend that's gotten worse and worse over those 4 years, where the drop off in pace when F1 gets to Europe seems to get worse and worse every year. Now, looking at Red Bull in the Constructor the last 4 seasons, 2021, second in the Constructors Championship, 585 points, average pole gap of 0.183 seconds, and average minimum finishing position of 2.55. Again, they won the Drivers' Championship that year, so they were very, very happy, and it was really their first realistic chance at a championship since 2013. Into the new regulations we go, 2022, and again, very competitive with Ferrari right out of the gate, but again, operationally a much more effective team, and again, aided a bit by the directive that came in after that, this Belgian Grand Prix. Win the Drivers' Championship, or win the Constructors' Championship, win the Drivers as well, but 759 points, average pole gap 0.185 seconds, so again, a little bit slower than 2021, but again, qualifying is fine, especially when you can overtake like it's the easiest thing in the world. Average minimum finishing position 1.38, which again is very, very good number. Any number in the ones for average minimum finishing position is basically just downright dominant. 2023 again, another very dominant season. First in the Constructors' Championship, 860 points. I can tell you right now, Red Bull are not getting 860 points in the Constructors' Championship, even with the extra 2 races that we have this year. Average pole gap 0.131 seconds, so again, somehow improves on 2021 and 2022. And then average minimum finishing position of 1.18. So again, that's the second best I've ever calculated. Only one that beats that is the 2016 Mercedes. 2024, started the season was very, very good, but again, it's definitely tailed off the last 2 months or so. But again, still first in the Constructors, 408 points. Average pole gap of 0.029 seconds, which again is a bit misleading, given that in the last 3 races they've not gotten pole at all those races, but those 3 races have all had weather-affected qualifying sessions, which means I can't put them, or I can't use that data very easily to calculate the pole gap. Average minimum finishing position 2.5 seconds, which again is a big step back from 2022 and 2023. It's closer to being in line to where they were 2021, but again, given where the trend has been the last 2 months, they're looking at potentially ending up with an average minimum finishing position in the 3s, which again, you would be looking at some of the weaker teams in terms of constructors, if assuming Max Verstappen was also able to hold on to the Drivers' Championship. And again, that points lead in the Constructors' Championship, only 42-point lead on McLaren. Realistically, if, for example, McLaren were able to get a 1-2 at Monza or at the Dutch Grand Prix, and Red Bull scored 0 points, that would leapfrog McLaren right into the Constructors' lead right there. And again, looking at that development race, we can see that they've definitely had a bit of a step backwards. Average starting position, average finishing position after race 6, so this is when I did my quarterly review. 1.38 for Verstappen, 3.88 for Perez. Average finishing position 1.14 for Verstappen, 3.00 for Perez. And again, for Verstappen, he's losing about a position. He's dropped about a position compared to where we were after race 6. For Perez, qualifyingly, very worryingly, has dropped over 4 positions, and for finishing position has dropped 2.7 positions. So again, that drop has definitely been more noticeable on Perez's side, partially because that's kind of what happens when you have more competition. It means that the gap between teammates is going to increase, and for Verstappen, even when the cars are relatively equal, because he is arguably the best driver on the grid, he's still going to be able to stay at that high level. But for Perez, where he's, I think, at this point quite clearly the weakest driver in the top 4 teams, he's obviously going to struggle even if the cars are relatively equal. And again, big story, talking point is that the upgrades that the team has brought to the car have not been really working as planned. And again, it's been a very, very gradual kind of decline. They were basically outright dominant first 5, 6 races. Again, China was really the last dominant race they had. They had a bunch of races at the start of the European leg where they were still the best, arguably the best car, basically tied. And we've kind of gotten to a point where the last 3 or 4 races, they haven't really ever looked like they've been within contention of the win. And yeah, again, it's kind of a real question mark about why that is. It may be that, again, the they went in a very different design philosophy for the start of 2024. And again, it's possible that that philosophy has basically hit kind of a plateau and they can't develop it any further, whereas everyone else, they're able to develop the car more and still able to find more pace. So again, it's possible they went down the wrong developmental pathway. And again, your big losses of personnel, at least in terms of big names. Newey, of course, left the team, and Jonathan Wheatley is leaving the team as well to become team principal of the Sauber/Audi team. And of course, we know that there's been a lot of chaos, a lot of uncertainty going on behind the scenes, basically for the last almost year or so, dating back to last year, where basically the rumor is that the Horner faction tried to get Helmut Marko out of the team. And again, there's been a massive power struggle, especially between Red Bull side of Austria, the Horner side, the Motorsport side again, over who really controls the team after the death of the unfortunate death of Red Bull's founder. And again, you have Perez's contract saga as well, which has been a constant talking point. There were so many stories coming into the last 2 or 3 races before the summer break, talking about how there was this clause in the contract where if Perez was 100 points or more behind Verstappen, which he definitely was 100 points behind, more than 100 points behind Verstappen at the summer break, they would be able to activate a clause which would let him go, and they would bring in someone like Ricciardo or Lawson or Tsunoda for the rest of the season. Of course, they've decided not to do that. Perez will be sticking around for the second half of the season, and again, it will be up to him to kind of turn things around, find that pace again, and perform at the level that the team needs him to. But again, that doesn't really answer the questions for 2025. They kind of left the door open with, maybe we can replace him for 2025. They never said anything really conclusively. So again, something that's going to be a story that's going to be dragging on, continuing for the next basically several months or so until the season really ends, and until Red Bull definitively say that Perez or someone else will be driving in that team in 2025. Of course, there's rumors here and there talking about Verstappen switching teams or whatever, and I think at this point that's not really possible. The only spot he would realistically go would be Mercedes, and again, it looks like Antonelli is highly likely to be filling that vacant seat there. So I think at least for 2025, you're going to be having you're almost certainly going to be having Verstappen, and again, who his teammate will be is a bit of a question mark at this point. Could it be Perez? Could it be Lawson? Could it be Ricciardo? Could it be Tsunoda? At this point, it could be Sainz. Again, maybe it'll be Nico Hülkenberg. Maybe Sebastian Vettel will be coming out of retirement. Maybe it'll be Kimi Räikkönen. I don't know. But again, it's something that's definitely been an ongoing saga where there's just been so much drama, so much news. And again, they really just need to kind of keep the ship straight and trying to focus on winning this Constructors' Championship for the rest of the season. Again, thank you so much for watching. That is the end of my mid-season review of the 10 teams in Formula One. Again, at this point, as of when this video will be going live, we're very, very close to the Dutch Grand Prix. So again, my preview for said Dutch Grand Prix will be out very, very shortly. So again, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.